Kevorian Barnes missed Tuesday's practice, and it has me wondering, is it time to press the panic button? Oh yeah, it's Locked on Horned Frogs. Play my music.
You are Locked on Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, family? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked on Horned Frogs podcast. Your number one daily one-stop shop for everything TCU athletics, Monday through Friday. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. And I, of course, am DARRION GRAY, a.k.a. the Mouth of the South, 817 Raised. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And right now, new customers can bet just $5. And if your bet wins, you'll get $300 back in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. It's all about the Iron Skillet. All about the Iron Skillet. So what is the biggest concern walking out of week 3 and into week 4 for the Frogs? Here's a little bit of hint. Sonny Dykes has the same concern. Speaking of Dykes, he doesn't really seem to care too much about the Iron Skillet, even though this is the last one. His comments make it very difficult for someone who's trying to get into the Iron Skillet rivalry. And I say that as someone who's trying to get into the rivalry. But today's episode starts exactly where it needs to start, and that is with eyes focused on the health of Kevorian Barnes. And I have one question. Is it time to smack, not just press, but smack the panic button when it comes to Kevorian Barnes' availability for Saturday's matchup? No. And when you hear my intro, I may ask a question. Every time I start the show, I'm going to say, oh, yeah. That is not the answer to the question, okay? The question is the intro. The oh, yeah is a separate part of the intro. Let's just get that out the way. But is it time to press the panic button on Kevorian Barnes and his availability for TCU versus SMU? Not quite yet, but it is time to pull out the panic meter. So let's get into the timeline of the Kevorian Barnes injury. I say this after a revelation that Coach Sonny Dykes made at the press conference. I thought that I was done having this conversation. That's the thing. I thought that this episode is coming out Wednesday. I thought that by Wednesday, I would be done discussing the health of Kevorian Barnes because it's been 5 days since the game, if you include Saturday, because I had a post-game podcast. In the 4 episodes since the game was over, so that's the post-game episode, that's Monday, Tuesday, and now today, Wednesday, I have talked about Kevorian Barnes and his health 3 times. And unfortunately, each one of those times, it has been a completely different tone. When you had the injury on the game day, I said, hey, we're going to keep it up in the air. He didn't return. He's just as likely to miss the SMU game as he was to be completely healthy enough to return. Then we come in on Monday and I say, hey, you dodged the bullet. Look at that. We knew that there was a chance that he wasn't injured badly. Sounds like Coach Dykes backs that up with his post-game presser saying it was just precautionary. And then you get to Wednesday and it's like, yeah, not so fast, my friend. Shout out to Lee Corso and the great career that he had. But you're looking through an entire scope of emotions when it comes to Kevorian Barnes and his health. When it comes to Kevorian Barnes and his health, we've talked about it 3 times. It went from, I don't know, we'll see how it goes down. Then it went to, sigh of relief. Nothing is really wrong. He'll be back for Saturday. Now, as I stand here on Wednesday, I'm like, it's back up in the air. We're pulling out the panic meter. I'm not pressing the panic button. But when it comes to Kevorian Barnes and his health, the panic meter is out and it's at a 6 because we have gone to so many herky-jerky moments. That's the problem. The problem is that we don't know where we stand, and it feels like we're one place 1 minute, one place another minute, and then another place. It's just up and down, up and down. Shout out to anybody who's on the video side, because that's what it is. It's actually, I'm going to do a graph with my hands for everybody who's on the video side. Let's do that. So on Saturday, we're here. This is right. This is even. We don't want to make too many statements because we don't know. I hadn't heard the press conference yet. After the press conference, we come in on Monday. This is even. We're now here. We're now up, right? Oh, yeah. Kevorian is going to be back. The running game is going to be on full attack. This is great. Then on Wednesday, as we stand here today, now we're here. Now we're concerned because he's no longer just everything's cool, everything's great. It's he's out of practice. It's we'll have to see what his availability is like on Thursday. I can't be the only one concerned. I know I'm not the only one concerned. You should be too. Now, I have been told that sometimes the stress and the emphasis and how I speak, the inflection in my voice from time to time sounds overly dramatic. So allow my words to be crystal clear. This is serious. It's not dire. It's not dire, but it is serious. All right. So I don't want that to be confused. When evaluating when evaluating Kevorian Barnes in his health, this is a serious situation that should be monitored. It is not at the point where it's dire yet, and I'm only speaking for his outlook on Saturday. When we get here on Thursday, we'll have a better and more accurate understanding of where he stands. But as we stand here today on Wednesday, and we talk about a fluid situation, because I'm not always going to sit here, wait and see. I reserve the right to change where I stand. Right now, the panic meter is at a 6. The reason the panic meter is at a 6 is because once upon a time, Sonny Dykes told me, precautionary, he could have came back into the game, had me feeling like everything was peaches and cream. Then I come in on Monday and I tell you that after saying I'm not sure what to stand for on Saturday. Unfortunately, 2 days later, we keep going in 2-day increments, right? 2 days later, I have to come back here and tell you that he did not practice on Tuesday. I have to come back here and tell you that there is a chance he doesn't play, that his status will be clearer on Thursday. That is actually quite concerning. You should be concerned. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and blow it out of proportion. Kevorian Barnes, though they have a deep running back room, he's the guy. He's the physical guy. He's the bruiser. He's the guy that if I want to really wear somebody out, I'm bringing Kevorian Barnes to the party. If I want to wear out a Mustang defensive line, if I want to keep punching them in the mouth, that is who I'm bringing to the party. If I want somebody who is going to run up the middle and is very physical, I'm bringing him to the party. This is no disrespect to these other guys that are on the roster. Not at all. Everybody has their own skill set. But for me, not only is Kevorian Barnes the physical guy, he is the guy. Not only is Kevorian Barnes the guy who is going to break a couple of tackles, he's the guy who's going to get the most carries on my team. And I understand when you have depth, you feel a little bit more confident that you can replace a player. I'm just not trying to replace my top guy. I'm not trying to find out. Not in the battle of the Iron Skillet. Not when I'm trying to take home that trophy for the last time for who knows how long, because they're not going to play each other for some years at least. This is not a game that you just want to take lightly. It's not a conference game, so I get if you don't want to rush him back. But this is also a game that is important. This is a game that does matter. This is a game that, if we're talking about college football playoffs and things future, this plays a part. This is beating another ACC opponent. This is beating another ACC opponent. So that's 2 Power 4 wins on your schedule if you're able to win on Saturday that weren't even in conference play. That's going to be really good. That's going to be really good for TCU at the end of the season if they can pull it off. And it becomes a little bit more difficult to do if Kevorian Barnes is not on the field. So, serious, not dire. We will update on Thursday to see exactly where it is that we stand. But let's keep moving forward. One person who's not really a fan of the rivalry, clearly, is Sonny Dykes. And as someone who's trying to get into the rivalry, Dykes' comments really don't make me interested in delving in. Let's get into what he said as we continue with Locked On Horned Frogs. Today's episode is brought to you by Mazda. And Mazda crafts cars for those who do more than simply move, right? Yeah, we get from point A to point B. Everybody do that. I don't know about you. I'm still young. I'm not trying to get in the point A to point B car. I'm trying to get into the car that's going to have me looking stylish. I'm trying to get into the car that's going to want me make me want to turn my music up and let my windows down so that people look around and say, "Oh, I know who that is." I want that vehicle. And that's the Mazda. Mazda delivers confidence with every ride. with more IIHS top safety pick awards than anyone else as of August 2025. From footwork to breathwork, athletes sweat all the details. Mazda brings some of this same intention into how we craft every model. So like our players, we sweat every single detail because when you make every move count, impossible becomes irrelevant. Mazda, move and be moved. It's almost a weekend. You know what that means. It's time to look back and crown this week's MVP on Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order, these players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. For TCU, Ed Small delivered in a big way. When you're talking about his first touchdown, a beautiful one-hander that Josh said, why are you showing off? Use two. But this was a big-time touchdown for the freshman in his second game of his career. He had 2 touchdowns, both from Josh Hoover, both in the first half. And just like Small delivered for TCU, DoorDash delivers your Saturdays. With DoorDash Streaks, you save every Saturday that you order. Stack it up all season, and you can save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period through November 18th. As we continue rolling on today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day every day. For your second listen, make sure you're checking out Locked On Big 12 because there's a big-time matchup between Utah and Texas Tech. Trust and believe that Drake is going to break down that matchup because it's something that we all in the conference need to watch. You see how I'm kind of selling that game? You see how I'm telling you how it's a big-time game, how it's something you need to see? I don't feel like Sonny Dykes did that when it came to TCU versus SMU. I don't necessarily feel like Sonny Dykes sold this. I am someone who is new to this whole everything, really, this whole ecosystem. And I understand that TCU versus SMU is a big deal. Dykes' comments do not make me waver in that belief. But what I will say is if I'm listening to the coach and I'm listening to how this goes, this does just feel like they're not a Big 12 opponent, but this just feels like a regular conference game. This doesn't feel like a rivalry of a century. This doesn't feel like the last time that 2 rivals will face off against each other for the foreseeable future. When you're looking at what Dykes said, and that's an important way that I said it, looking at what Dykes said. Once again, I'm all about pulling the curtain back. I'm all about giving transparency. I'm recording this super late. Matter of fact, it's actually midnight right now. So I'm technically recording this Wednesday morning. As I'm recording this, Sonny Dykes' press conference has not been posted. I have not been able to hear what he said, but I have been able to keep up with tweets. So I have been able to look at what he said. This is important because tone is involved. There's a lot of different ways that you can shift the message versus reading it and hearing it, right? Because maybe there's a laugh involved here. But when Dykes says that SMU doesn't really care, and he was shocked at how much SMU didn't care about the rivalry, it's just like, man, that as someone trying to get into the rivalry, it doesn't make it feel big time to me. Now, does he add the caveat of maybe it's because it was so lopsided? He does, and that does change my opinion a little bit because now it feels like a jab, but it didn't feel like that felt like it could have been a haymaker. Like I feel like, and I come from, look, my alma mater, we had a rival. And in football, we couldn't beat the rival to save our life. I never saw us beat our biggest rival, our really only rival. And I think that streak went on for about 2-3 years after I graduated. We just broke the streak last year, then lost again this year. But we had just broke the streak. And follow me, I'm not just telling you about my collegiate career. But they hadn't beat this school going in, right? I went to Texas Southern. We hadn't beat PV, I think, for a couple of years before I got to the school. Didn't beat PV for a couple of years after I left the school. It ended up being 8-9 years of just PV continuously beating Texas Southern. I ain't really got too much animosity, PV. And I'm telling you the truth, You can't beat the anger out of somebody. You can't beat the hatred out of somebody. So maybe he's saying that that's what happened at SMU. Maybe that's what he's referring to. But just reading the tweet didn't give me that feeling. It didn't. It didn't. Even the way the tweet was structured, it was like 2 lines. It was almost like 2 thoughts. So the first one, I just see SMU really didn't care. And I'm like, dang, they didn't care. It's a one-sided rivalry. Now, mind you, what I said in the beginning, I'm 8-1-7 raised. So I do understand the Dallas versus Fort Worth of it all. I'm very aware of the Dallas versus Fort Worth. So I look at this as a rivalry that supersedes the universities. I look at this as a rivalry between 2 big cities. I look at this as a competition, not just for an Iron Skillet, but for Metroplex superiority. I look at this as a lot of things. Dykes' comments do not make me waver in my belief that this is a big-time game. I've heard enough TCU fans talk about how they feel about SMU. I've seen the back and forths on social media between Mustangs and Horned Frogs fans. So, I'm fully aware this is a rivalry. Don't get it twisted. One man's feelings or one man's stance and his temperament towards a game does not dictate what the overall opinion of it is. But when your coach is out here saying that SMU didn't really care, even if it is because TCU was winning a bunch of games, if you're just saying that SMU didn't care, it's just like, I don't know. I found it difficult to truly get in. And it was accompanied, I can't tell you exactly when he said it because I didn't hear it, but I've seen his tweet. It was accompanied by saying that Baylor is the biggest rival. Because maybe you want to say, hey, that comment was just saying TCU is so dominant. That was a little jab to him. Okay, I will accept that. But it's hard for me to accept it when you also backdoor it with Baylor is the biggest rival. It just feels like Sonny Dykes was downplaying this rivalry in general. It just felt like this rivalry, what I had heard from this or about this rivalry was not what I feel like I got from Dykes in his press conference. That's what I'm saying. And as we start here, I wanted to bring a skillet on the show. And I'm like, man, how many people feel like Dykes out there? Like, how many people feel like this isn't a rivalry to get amped for anymore? I don't know. It's just it's a very interesting one. Now, the reason that Dykes says that Baylor is TCU's best rival, biggest rival, is that Big 12 protected the game. So, college landscape is changing. And I think it's valuable to say, hey, this is our rival. This is what we look at. And I think I even seen somebody agree with that statement. I think I saw somebody agree that Baylor is the bigger rival. But the changing landscape of college football and how everybody's doing scheduling, the Big 12 only has 4 games that need to be played every year. Only has 4 games. Arizona versus Arizona State, BYU versus Utah, Kansas versus Kansas State, and TCU versus Baylor. Those are the only 4 games. Now, TCU versus Baylor being protected in comparison to SMU doesn't mean anything because SMU just isn't in the conference. So it's not like they picked Baylor over SMU. It's more like Dykes is picking Baylor over SMU. But still, that is one of his points, or that is one of his that's part of his evidence to back up on why Baylor is this big rival. That's what he says. Hey, we play them every year. Even with all of the rotations and everything, we play them every single year. The same could have been said for SMU until recently, but hey, whatever, is what it is. This is the last year you have it. I'm sure that they want to go ahead and win. Maybe it's the history between Dykes and SMU that has them feeling like this. Maybe it's the history of, just saying it's the last one. I'm not going to give it too much energy. But to me, reading it, not hearing it, because I haven't heard it yet. I'll go back and I'll listen to it. And if I hear it by the time I come back on tomorrow, we'll have a crossover with Grayson Singleton from Locked On SMU. But Wednesday or, matter of fact, tomorrow, yeah, if I hear it, I'll talk about it on there. I'll mention it. Because I'm sure we're going to talk about the battle for the Iron Skillet as our storyline. But yeah, this is just not the way I thought it would start. Matter of fact, please come in here and poo-poo on SMU so I can get some of the rivalry heat back. All right. I need some of that. Maybe I'll bring out the skillet on Friday. But let's keep pushing, because one thing that you're going to have to look out for is the connection between Kevin Jennings and Romelo Brinson, because the cornerbacks have been labeled as a liability. So let's take a look at this as we wrap up today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. You know, most people can't name all of their financial investments or accounts, whether it's 401ks, properties, any of that. And when you don't have the full picture, you tend to leave money on the table. Now, I don't want to leave any money on the table. You don't get it back. So I don't want to leave any money on the table. That's why there's, Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. So it can be as mobile as you want. I love that as well. Monarch is built for people with busy lives. So if you don't want to have to go to this app and this app and this app and this app, you just have one consolidated into one app, and you can just check that whenever you need. Time consuming, no longer. Easy, now it is. Now, don't let this financial opportunity slip through the cracks. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That is 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with the code LOCKEDONCollege. As a wrapping up today's episode of Locked On Horned Frogs, I appreciate you for making this your first listen of the day, every day, making it all the way to segment 3. And I thank you 2 times for that. Thank you. Thank you. The scariest thing walking out of Abilene Christian, other than Kevorian Barnes' injury, is the play of the cornerbacks. The reason I'm so concerned is not only did we see them struggle, we heard Sonny Dykes call them out. That, I think, is the most concerning aspect. Yes, players struggle. Yes, units struggle sometimes. And I don't even know if I can say this was pure lack of focus because of the way he called them out. He was clearly disappointed with their performance. And to me, going against SMU, I don't want to feel like my cornerbacks are a liability. So the most concerning aspect outside of Kevorian Barnes going down with injury, the most concerning aspect of TCU walking out of Abilene Christian and walking into the SMU game is the fact that the cornerbacks have been called out by the head coach, and they cannot play that way. If they play that way against SMU, we're setting up for a shootout. And I'm going to tell you one name that you need to remember, Romelo Brinson. Because in the first game, 63-yard touchdown. Second game, 75-yard touchdown. That really required a lot of, real good concentration. But 75-yard touchdown and a 25-yard touchdown in the second game. Now, 25 pales in comparison to 63 and 75, but this was a streak. This was a go route. And also, this was in overtime, first play. Got to have it. He goes to Brinson. So not only are you seeing Brinson's ability to stretch the field, you also see his ability to be a go-to receiver in a pivotal moment for Kevin Jennings. And then also, because he stretches the field so well, he's also great at comeback routes because you have to respect his speed. So a lot of times you want to not let him get deep. You end up not letting him get deep. Boom, he cuts up, and then he has free room, and he can run with the ball in his hand. Romelo Brinson is going to be an issue for TCU if they can't get their corners together. They get and this isn't me telling you that the cornerbacks are a liability. One of the funniest things that, I see in my past is you'll say something or reiterate what a coach said, and they'll be like, nah, man, no. Fans will, nah, man, why you say that? Man, that's what the coach said. Matter of fact, I'm just telling you that's what coach said. Hey, coach isn't happy. Man, what you mean the cornerbacks ain't good? I'm telling you, Coach Dykes, he don't like it. I'm just going based off what Coach Dykes said, and he wasn't a fan. So you see Brinson, who's able to stretch the field. And if you have poor cornerback play, the first thing I'm looking for is big plays. And Jennings is looking for big plays. Let's go through some of his PFF chart. Outside left, deep left. 2 for 3, 53 yards, a touchdown. Between the numbers, but deep. So deep middle. 3 for 5, 168 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I think that both the 63 and the 75-yard touchdown may be included in that. Yeah, I think they would be. Outside, deep right. 3 for 3, 149 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So what you're seeing is when he targets deep, Kevin Jennings is scoring touchdowns. That's 5 touchdowns out of 6. Kevin Jennings has 6 touchdowns on the season, 5 of which have been 20 or more yards in the air. Includes a 65-yarder, excuse me, a 63-yarder, a 75-yarder, and a 25-yarder. This is something to be concerned about if you're not feeling confident in your cornerback play. Because if you know the team wants to take deep shots, it's already in their DNA. Now you have question marks at corner, they're going to continuously try to attack you over the top. And the thing about big time plays, the thing about shot plays is you only need one. You only need one. I've seen it on an SMU game. One play, 75 yards, touchdown. You don't have to be methodical. And with Romelo Brinson, this is always a threat. With Kevin Jennings, with Kevin Jennings, this is always a threat. This is something that you have to continuously look out for. So just something to keep in mind, I think that we need to watch it. It may be one of the scariest things going into the game. But we'll talk about more of these matchups, more of these storylines, what we think the game will look like with Grayson Singleton, host of Locked On SMU, on tomorrow's episode. In the meantime, in between time, until the next time that we hear each other, family, take care, stay blessed. Peace.